Welcome to Taking Your Third Path, where courageous stories and hard-won wisdom guide us towards lives of intention, connection, and care.
Hi, everybody. On today's episode, we're talking to Morra Aarons Mele. Earlier in Morra's career, she founded the public health and issues advocacy or consulting agency Women Online that included a database of female influencers. Today, in addition to wearing many other hats, Morra is now the podcast host of The Anxious Achiever. In that podcast, she's exploring this intersection between mental health and work, something we all need to learn how to do a little bit better. And in today's Taking Your Third Path podcast, we'll take a deep dive into the secrets of creating a team at home and a team at work, and why adopting this approach is key to living a life where you can thrive at work and thrive at home. So welcome, Morra. We're so glad you're here.
Thanks, Jessica. It's great to be here.
You know, one of the things that we talked about when we first reconnected, I mean, we've known each other for a long time,
Yeah.
was that you wear many hats. And many of those hats are on the family side, and then many of those hats are on the work side, but starting on the family. You are a mother of three. You have a mom who you help who has Alzheimer's.
Mhm.
You build in time during your day for exercise and doctor's appointments. And you're married to someone who you described as a true partner. We're going to circle back to that in a little bit because there's some really fun ways you've really shown me that. And how you also prioritize time together as a couple and as a family. Anything I'm missing? Those are all a lot of amazing family hats that you wear.
I have a lot of pets who
That's
take
right.
up
You
way
told me.
too much time. Yes.
You told me about that too. Yes. Well, I think one of the things that I really picked up on when you were telling me about life at home was how much you and your husband, you and your husband Nico have really learned how modeling this importance of family time has helped shape your children in some really wonderful ways. And the story that really struck for me was how your eldest son still spends time with your mom. And I think that's an example of something you've done really right. Want to tell us more
Hmm.
about that?
Oh, gosh. Thank you. I mean, listen, he's a teenager. He's about to turn 17. So, he's definitely not raising his hand to spend tons of time with my mom who has Alzheimer's and unfortunately doesn't really speak very much, but he's really good with her. And all my kids, I think, they're good with her. They're comfortable with her. They help her get in and out of the car. They make sure she is seated comfortably when she's at the house. They visit her. And that's hard because, she's she's not like the grandma they remember, and she's in memory care. Sometimes she doesn't smell so good. So I think it's a gift to me that they are so kind and loving with her. I think that sometimes we try to protect kids. Our kids who are so privileged they're insulated from some of life's harder elements. And, you know, being around sick people is something that many of them don't experience, but um, they're great with my mom. It's really
Yeah.
meaningful to me.
Yeah. And I would agree that it's great for our kids to be exposed to that. But I think what we're also doing is we're modeling that this is important to us. And in our modeling, our kids pick this up. And
Yeah.
we're going to come back to this theme a lot because, when you build a really strong team at home with your partner and team at work, you're showing your kids something that's really powerful for their lives when they construct their lives too. So,
Hmm.
and again, you just gave me so many great examples of how show your family that family time is important. You have regular dinners together. You do this great thing in a family camp in New Hampshire. You've played into your husband's strengths. You were telling me about he's the one who does crafts with your
Yeah.
daughter. I think that's really true that partners can play different roles and have different strengths. Um, and you do this thing called FFF. Tell us about FFF.
FFF, forced family fun. So this is something I think a lot of people during the pandemic sort of looked around at each other and thought, oh my God, we're spending a lot more time together than we usually do. And of course, we wanted that time to be enriching sometimes. And so we started this thing called FFF, which is Forced Family Fun, which is non-negotiable. You have to be there whether you want to or not. And sometimes it's very enriching. And sometimes it truly is fun, but one of the things that I wanted my kids to be exposed to was classic cinema. My dad was a huge cinema buff, actually taught a course on cinema at the local Y. And so I kind of wanted that for my kids. So I make them watch movies, which is really funny to see which ones hold up and which ones I'm like, oh my God, that could go in the dustbin of history. Um, and we're going to be doing one over the holiday break, which is an experiment, but we're going to be doing sort of a strategic life path for the coming year. It's something that I have been working on myself, and I, I, I interviewed Arthur Brooks recently, who's the prominent author and social scientist, and he was telling me kind of jokingly that he made his kids and his family like sit down and do their business plans every year, which I thought was like a lot maybe for teenagers and an 11-year-old. But I thought, I'm kind of thinking about my year and what do I want this coming year? Like, what's my vision? And I thought maybe the kids would like that too, because they all have things that they're really into. They're sort of at those ages where they go to school, but they have their things they're really into. And my husband has a startup, and I have a weird job, so we're going to try that for FFF and see how it goes next week.
That sounds wonderful. And again, I just, my kids are so much older, and you can really see, again, I won't beat this drum too often, but you're modeling all kinds of fun things there, right? You're modeling this idea of envisioning the future
Hmm.
and kind of giving yourself space to be creative and thoughtful about reinventing yourself, which, by the way, is a theme we're going to come back to because you've really done this quite a few times. And so
Yes.
wonderful. So again, there might be one or the other way to answer this question, but why has creating family time been so important? Or is there something from your own experiences that made this really important to you?
I mean, I will say that I'm not always good at creating family time, and I think that one of the things that I've realized is I carry some guilt about when my kids were little, about maybe not having enough family time. It was a time when we had a nanny. My children were very much co-parented by nannies, and they were incredible. My husband and I both worked a lot. I traveled a lot, building my business, and I missed a lot. I was lucky, and when I was home, I had so much flexibility, so I was there a lot, but I missed a lot. And I think that, we all moms always have some guilt. And looking back, I wish I had made more time for them. But I also, like a good Gen Xer, grew up the child of divorce and really lost a lot of family time when my parents split up. And always kind of wanted a family that like had traditions and did stuff. And so my husband and I think both feel that yearning very strongly. And it's something that we do try to create while acknowledging that he and I both work a lot and the kids are really busy, and like we do live this kind of modern scheduled life. It's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
duality.
Yes, it is, but the intentionality is key, right? And the fact that you and your husband are have the same intention really helps figure out solutions like FFF. I mean, I love that. It's like now everybody in your family knows, okay, FFF's happening, and this is
Yes,
what we're
there
going
is a
to
lot
do.
of complaining about FFF,
I'm
but
sure. Oh,
but
yeah. Yeah, we're not pretending it's all super, especially as we get to be teenagers, We were the same way, So, well, I think something that's fun also that happens over time is that kids can become more of a resource. And again, this is not simple, but you were telling me some fun mental, kind of a mental attitude you had about who's responsible for family work, and that inspired you around how to approach your kids as they've gotten a little bit older around getting involved with family work. Does that ring a bell? And
no, that doesn't ring a bell. I don't remember. I'm perimenopausal. I don't remember anything.
well, you said I don't want to feel like a servant in my own home.
Oh, okay. Yes, yes. That is correct. I often feel like a servant in my own home. And I am always also surprised at how the gender roles play out in my family, even though I'm a radical feminist and my husband is a feminist, that my daughter, who's the youngest, she's 11, and the boys are 15 and 17, ends up doing the dishes and taking up household chores. And the boys just don't. Like they have this sort of learned helplessness. Like
Hmm.
they're so bad at doing the dishes that it's almost like they hope I will never ask them to do the dishes. So these gender roles really bother me a lot. But I do think that one of my goals for 2026 is to really make the boys more active in chores. They they get away with a lot because they're super busy, doing their teenage. They're doing good things like they're playing sports and studying and all that like that they should be doing. But I realize that I think I've indulged them a little too much, and it's time for them to step up because every once in a while I do. I feel like I'm the servant in the house, and that's not a good feeling.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll tell you, it's your children's partner will thank you for
Yeah,
getting them into that behavior because I can watch my adult children now, and they are very much willing to play a equal role in getting things done. And so it
it's
makes it
I, it is, and it's funny in my own marriage. It's been a real learning process. My husband had a funny upbringing. His dad was in the Foreign Service, and they grew up all over the world, and they grew up in a lot of countries where they had household staff.
right.
Um, Not because they were so rich, but because they were
That's just
American
the way it was. Yeah.
diplomats, and that's how it
Yep.
was. And so my husband, God love him, uh, was not the best at household chores. And he's had to learn. Also, he's not like he doesn't really care if the house is clean in the way that I do. But he's getting better. And he does a lot of the stuff that I don't know how to do. He does like a lot of the IT. And the kids actually have a group chat called the Dad Complainers, um,
Tell me more.
which I think is so funny. It makes me laugh. The dad complainers, and that's where they complain about things like the Wi-Fi doesn't work. And he's constantly doing that, which
Yeah.
thankfully I don't do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I think again, all households figure this out. No household is perfect, but it is this opportunity of as our kids get a little older, they can be part of the team at home.
Yeah,
And yes, that helps in the moment, but I think it also helps them set up a mindset where, okay, this work, unless you're living abroad,
right. With
this
staff.
work, this work is part of our lives, and how do we get it done? So,
Yeah.
um, so. You've really created this team at home. And now I want to switch to the work side of things because you also told me a little bit about this superpower you have. You have many superpowers, by the way, I've learned, and I'm not surprised. Um, but that while you were building, well, first off, let's step backwards. Today, you're doing something different than what I'm going to refer to when we talk about how you built a team at work. Today, you mentioned that you actually have six jobs.
Yeah.
And so tell people a little bit about what you're doing today.
I sold my company in 2021, and by 2022 in the spring, I was really free of all that work. And I really wanted to pursue my dream, which was to advocate for workplace mental health, train leaders, coach leaders, and work with teams to have more well-being, frankly, while being really high performing. And this is from my own history, as someone who struggles with bipolar 2 disorder, and my mental health has been up and down over the years. I'm neurodivergent. So that was my dream, to do this work full time. I had done it sort of nights and weekends for many, many years. It was my side hustle. So right now I do have a lot of different ways I earn a living. I work for myself still. I write books. I have my podcast. I do a lot of public speaking. I coach and I do leadership training and I teach executive education. And then I actually consult with organizations on their workplace mental health strategy. And
Wonderful.
did I miss anything? And I
I
create a
think,
lot of content to support all that,
right.
my newsletter and videos and all kinds of stuff. So it's a very diverse portfolio, and it requires a lot of organization and juggling in a way that, having one job doesn't, but it suits me a lot and I love it.
Yeah, yeah. And it's doing really important work because even someone, I'm not neurodivergent, but I know I am sometimes the anxious achiever because,
Yeah.
um, I mean, I had to learn, I'm trying to make big change in the world and help people think not only differently about how they can do things at home, but also how they can do things differently at work. And there'd be those moments, Maura, where I felt like my life wasn't really reflecting what I was trying to teach the
Hmm.
world. And that would create a lot of anxiety.
Yeah.
And like you, I had to learn, okay, what is it telling me and what can I learn from it? And honestly, it's really getting comfortable with the moments when we're feeling anxious and not afraid of them can be this place where it's very enriching and empowering and make us think in new ways. I've learned a lot from those moments over the course of my life. So I just want to
Yeah.
underscore
It's,
the importance of your work.
oh, thank you. I really appreciate them. Thank you. Yeah.
You are welcome. You are welcome. It's really, in fact, one of the things we really teach people about creating an integrated life is there's going to be times when work is hard or life is hard or both are hard. It's not a sign that you're failing. It's just a sign that there's something to learn and maybe even switch and change the next time you hit that hard spot. So, good.
Oh no, I mean, I agree, and I think one of the things, I mean, you and I both know Stu Friedman. One of the things that he taught me many, many years ago that I still try to do to this day is to experiment and get curious. And I think that when we get anxious, one of the best things we can do, and it takes skill, is to sort of step back and get curious, like why isn't this working? Why is this meeting making me anxious? Why did I just scream at my husband for no reason? Right. And then maybe, try to think of little tweaks or little experiments to see if that would make it better. And to me, that has been a really powerful practice in
Hmm.
my home life and my work life.
Hmm. Oh, 100%. 100%. I couldn't agree more. Experimentation is where it's at and being curious
Hmm.
to help you
Yeah.
design those experiments. So wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, in fact, I would think our theme today is looking at a team at home, a team at work. And I would say that it is all those moments of where it wasn't working and I got anxious that I could tap the Third Path community and learn about, well, how do you better improve your team at home? How do you better improve your team at work? So the Third Path community became this resource for me of like, oh, it's not working.
Yeah.
What can we learn here? So, but what you told me when we started thinking about work from what you were doing previously is that you really had uh, a lot. You had to build a team when you had your consulting organization, and you really relied on that team to make it all work. In
Yeah.
fact, you told me some other things about building that team that I think were really powerful. So, what was it? What were you looking for in building a team at work that was going to make it work better? And what did you learn about yourself in that process?
I always loved building teams. When I worked for other people, I had the opportunity to build several marketing teams from the ground up, and it was always something I just really loved doing, um, and that I feel like I'm good at. And when I worked for myself, I started my company back in 2000. I mean, I started freelancing in 2006 or 2007 when I was in graduate school. And then by 2009, I had had my first son and I was freelancing to try to, make money. And that quickly built into that I needed to bring some people on. And the very first person who joined me, Christine Coe, she's a dear, dear friend, and we still work together on projects. She was going to take another job at a real company. And I said, listen, I can't promise you much, but if you're willing to try, I think we could do something really great together. And we both took that leap of faith, and it was so beautiful and it was wonderful. And I think that to me, having people that I trust by my side has always been something I need. I didn't realize why, though, until a few years ago when I realized that I'm neurodivergent. And I am really spiky, like a lot of people are. I'm really, really good at some things, and I'm really terrible at other things, and I will never be good at them. And it's pointless for me to try to get better. And that was a huge aha moment for me because it made me realize why I always loved having great people around me and relying on people because I need people. I mean, we all need people, but I really need people. Like I would be in big trouble if I had to take on a lot of tasks that you need to do a good job at work on my own. And I think that's my new book is really about this, how do neurodivergent and leaders with different brains really set themselves up for success so they can really lean into their superpowers. We are not taught that in society. We are taught, especially if we're high achieving people, that we have to constantly be getting better, right? And constantly trying to improve our weak spots. And I just don't think that's true. I mean, there are some things, yes, I guess you need to be proficient in, but if you're like me, you're not going to get better. And don't try. You'll just feel bad about yourself. You'll feel shame. You'll feel guilt. Really think about the people that you need to be with.
Yeah. Yeah. Amen to everything you just said. And, and why get good at everything? If you can build a team where collectively you're good at all the things that you need to be, it
Yeah,
doesn't
it's
make
like the
any sense.
Avengers. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Let's build the Avengers team.
Yeah.
You've raised something else, though, that's really important. You created trust. And I
Hmm.
think trust is so important. It's interesting. Trust is there. And where it's especially important is the moments when things are hard, like you're being slammed with some work responsibilities, and everybody's feelings are a little bit frayed because they're just trying to get a lot done. But if you've built some trust and strength in your team, it's through those harder moments that it really pays off because you've kind of
Yeah.
built that trust in each other that we can make it
Well,
work.
trust is an antidote to, like curiosity, trust is an antidote to anxiety, right? And what I
Mm,
see when I work with leaders and teams that are anxious is that the trust isn't there. And so a
mm,
lot of people, especially my beloved anxious achievers, grow up thinking, I'm going to do this all myself because at least if I do it
mm-hmm,
myself, it will be done right. You know,
mm-hmm,
they're sort of a classic overfunctioner, from family
mm-hmm.
systems theory. And they don't build trust. People don't trust them. They don't trust their people. And that's no way to live. And it just really perpetuates anxiety. And instead, it's so wonderful when you do get into that sort of anxious doing mode to have someone step in. And my husband does this to me all the time. He's like, I got it, babe. Like, I got it. And then you're like, oh, yeah, you do. And all of a sudden, your shoulders can kind of relax.
Oh my God, I relate. Oh, I will try not to tell a long story. My husband's been teaching me over the years that I pick up rocks that I don't need to pick up.
Yep. Oh my God.
And so he's been helping me because there's a lot of demands right now with work. He's been really doing just what you're talking about. He's like, Jess, I could take that
Yeah.
rock from you. Would you like me to?
Yeah.
And just last night, I almost picked it back up. I had given it to him and I was about to pick it up again. And he's like, would you like me to keep on holding that rock?
I mean, I love that. Whatever metaphor. I mean, I worked with someone, she'd always go, not my monkey, not my circus. And
Yes.
and I would always laugh and I'd be like, yeah, I mean, I think that that's for a lot of us, especially, you'll see memes on Instagram about, the oldest daughter of a single mom phenomenon. I am an oldest daughter of a single mom. We get so used to doing it all ourselves, but
Mm.
you can't, like, you just can't.
Yeah, yeah, no, and that's really helpful here too. A common thread between your story and my story is the idea that, who we are growing up will show up again over and over
Oh,
again,
yeah.
and but I think what we get smarter at is saying, oh, here's my, and here it is again. What do I want to do around this behavior that I have of picking up rocks? But the other thing that's really striking me, another similarity is I've always argued that our superpowers are sometimes our weaknesses. And
Yeah.
there's this, it's like, so you learned, okay, if I try to do these tasks that I'm not good at, then I can't do the tasks that I'm really going to excel at. And so you got good at delegation. And so it's like
Hmm.
you had this thing that others would have considered a weakness, but you saw, oh, no, here's the strength in it. I'm just going to do
Oh,
things differently this way. So, hats off to you. Really great,
Thank
great
you.
approach. Yeah.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate
Yeah.
that.
And I think anybody who's moving ahead with both work and life responsibilities, again, back to that theme of anxiety, it is hard at times. It's really hard at times. And having methods to help yourself manage that anxiety is going to be critical. So,
Oh my God. I mean, you have to. I mean, I think it's something that my husband and I, we are both largely entrepreneurs. He's worked for other people and institutions during our 20-year marriage. I have not. And when you're both entrepreneurs, you really have to get comfortable with so much anxiety.
mm,
But in my experience, when you work for someone else, you have anxiety too, because they can lay you off and fire you. But entrepreneurial anxiety it's a special kind of anxiety. And you kind of have to learn what kind of anxiety you can live with and what you can't
mm,
as you're building your work life, I think,
mm-hmm,
and your
mm-hmm,
home life
mm-hmm,
and your
mm-hmm.
couple life.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. So many more examples I could share about what Jeff and I have learned because we're different people this way,
Hmm.
he and I. And interesting that now he's retired, I'm not, and it's like I have
Yeah.
stress still because I'm still working. He doesn't have as much stress because he's not working. That's, so like stress, anxiety.
Does he want you to stop working?
No, no, he's very happy with it, but we've had to learn a lot about how to, I mean, back to that word anxiety, we've had to really learn how to think about here's a person who's at a stage of his life where that doesn't play out in his life that
Yeah.
much. And he can choose not to have it play out in his life. And that's a very big goal of his. But I'm still doing a job that I love that is stressful at times
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
has creates some anxiety at times. And we've had to really learn as a couple given our different needs right now, how do we manage that? And we've gotten pretty smart about it. It's really happy to go on the Anxious Achiever podcast and tell you all about it. It's been really fun to see how we've handled it at each life stage. Like
Hmm.
elder care was an interesting, a lot of anxiety around elder care, or becoming a new parent, lots of
Hmm.
anxiety around that.
Hmm.
And how, as a couple, can you learn to play to each other's strengths and manage things as you're kind of wrestling those different life stages? It's been a very interesting road.
It really is. Marriage is something.
Maura, it has been a pleasure. I knew you were the right person to talk to about team at home, team at work. I really could not be the leader I am today if I had not built a strong team at home and a strong team at work. There's just moments when the work side of the equation takes over or the life side of the equation takes over. So you need to kind of lean into whoever that other team is to get through
Hmm.
those moments of time. So it's just been such a core part of my success of being an integrated leader. So, when you think about this concept, who's on your team? Who's been on your team?
I mean, I've had so many wonderful people on my team. Obviously, my husband is like my number one, right? Captain of the team. Um, at varying times, my husband and I, our family is not, we don't have family around. So we've had wonderful friends who've been on our team. We have had our incredible nannies who have honestly been, oh my God, such a strong part of my life and part of the team. Obviously, our colleagues at work and our community. Nico and I share one thing, which I'll just leave you, which is we don't really have like a work life and a home life. Our social lives, everything about our life always. We met at work. We know the same people. We do similar things. Like it's always been about both. And we love it that way. Some people it doesn't work for, but for us, we love it. And so everyone's on your team.
Yeah, well, you've intentionally built strong relationships in many places, and it really pays off in the long run
Yeah.
and creates a very delightful life. So that's
Yeah.
wonderful. Yeah, wonderful. I knew it would be a great conversation with you. So, Maura, thank you for this terrific conversation. And thank you for these interesting and wonderful insights on building a team at home and team at work. So, if you're listening in now, stay tuned. We're going to have the next segment talk a little bit about how you can put some of these ideas into practice and keep taking your third path.
Hey everyone, it's Melissa. It's time for part 2 of our Taking Your Third Path podcast. And today I have the pleasure of having a conversation with Judy Hughes. Judy has been an integrated life advocate with ThirdPath for many years. She facilitates some of our overwhelm mitigation groups. Judy is in the many HR roles over a 30-year career or 30-year plus career at Walt Disney Company, and wears other hats. Judy, welcome.
Thank you, Melissa. So good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Any roles of yours that I missed that you'd want people to know about?
Yeah, well, I mean, most of the roles that I've had have been like employee support roles, primarily in HR, and it's been over a decade focusing specifically on work-life issues for employees. And I'm also a licensed mental health counselor, so that also helps me with some of the support one-to-one.
I can only imagine how helpful a counseling background is. Our topic today that we're talking about is delegation and building a team at home and building a team at work. You've had so much experience with this at work, at home, as an OMG facilitator. So I'd love for you to be able to talk about maybe a couple of pointers for what you've learned at home for delegation and building that team at home.
Got it. Sure. And it's taken time, Melissa. I think both of us, with the full lives that we have. I'm married, been with my husband now 25 years this year, which is exciting. We have 2 kids, and we are recent empty nesters because our youngest just went off to college. So life is very different. But it's been an evolution and a journey to learn about delegation. So when I think back, my husband and I, like when we first met and we had our first house, eventually we fell into more traditional roles without really kind of talking about it, right? Like he took care of the outside, I took care of the inside, and that's just kind of how it flowed. But then there were times where, maybe one of us would feel a little overwhelmed, perhaps even resentful or a little nitpicky on the other person. And so that's where delegation was really helpful. And it came in where we were more intentional about talking about how things were going and what we really wanted to do. So, like example, we live where it's really hot in the summertime, working outside in the yard, no fun, right? But that was his job. And he'd come in exhausted, tired while I was doing something else in the air conditioning. And it was like, hey, it would be really helpful in the summer when I have to mow the lawn every single week if you could do X, pull the weeds or help with raking, whatever it might be. And it kind of clicked for us, was like, you're not in this alone. The other is, for a healthy relationship, we learned that don't assume the other person's a mind reader and they know what you need or what you want. So it was that stop and pause that while we didn't do it initially, we did recognize something was broken. It wasn't working well, or there was times when it wasn't working well. So it's never too late to start and think about it. And then and being very like overt and explicit about what you need and what you want by telling the other person. And that just kind of made both of our lives easier.
That makes so much sense, that intentionality. It really keeps coming up as a theme. Anytime we talk about work and life integration strategies, you must be mindful and intentional about it. And I'm sure that the skills that you developed early in your marriage then helped as you welcomed children in. And I would like to believe that you also ended up doing some delegation with your kids. You don't need to talk about that at all, but I'm curious if that applies, if there was a good success there with including your kids in the team at home.
A good point, right? Because, we call it delegation. You could call it chores. You could, whatever, you want to call it. Yeah, certainly as our kids were getting old enough, like some of it is you want to teach them responsibility, right? But it's also things are busy and both of my husband and I were working full time. We had a dog, like we had very full lives with activities. And after a while, you're like, there's anything I would rather do than clean my bathroom. I'd rather be out playing or doing something, fun with the family, whatever it might be. So, so part of it is selfishness, like handing things off, but part of it is like, you want to teach them that we all contribute to the household. But again, I learned my lesson that, my husband and I sort of traditionally said, this is going to be your chore. And then depending on the age, we kind of gave him a certain expanse of things to do. And what inevitably happened was I would become a nag, or we'd have to like remind them, or eventually it was like, listen, if you don't do this, right, you almost kind of get into that push and pull. And then it was like, again, an aha, right? They're kids, they're young. And this is not fun for them either, right? So with the delegation part, with the chores, whatever you want to call it, we took a moment to have them have some contribution of what they would like to do, right? Like you don't always have a choice, but at least it's like given these 5 things, which of these do you want to do daily or weekly, right? Or what does it look like of how you get it done? And then by them having a voice and having some control over the situation, that made life a lot easier. Now, I'm not saying we didn't have to remind them, and we did have to show them, right? Like, because they don't necessarily know how to do certain things. But it was like, instead of us telling them and being so authoritative, it was a collaborative delegation. And that led to a lot less tears on both our sides, right? The parents and the kids. Um, and then it also taught them that you have a voice, right? You're tiny and you're mighty, and you're an important part of this family, but we also expect you to do things.
I love all of that. And as you're talking, I keep thinking about how applicable that is to work. So I'm gonna switch gears for us and ask you what are some things, some successes you've had at work, some lessons learned from developing a strong team at work and leveraging delegation.
Right. So working in HR, I see a lot of different things happen with leaders where whether it's after the fact where they wish they could go back and do things differently, or things that they're hoping to be different. And I see some things kind of occur over and over. So similar with my children in some ways, it's everybody has responsibilities, right? And at work, it's a little different. You may not always get to do things that you like, right? However, you can match up the right task or project to like somebody's strengths or their skills or their future career possibilities, right? Because you're helping to develop them. So one is, think of delegation not just as getting tasks off your plate or someone else's plate. It's also a growth strategy. It could even be, you can even think of it as a succession strategy, right? Like the reality is, as while someone might want to have upward mobility, that may not always be the case, or they may not always be ready right now. So thinking ahead a little bit and anticipating, you can think of like, so what can we do to leverage the strengths that you have? What are those projects that we can use? But then also, if we have a career conversation about where you want to be, what can I do to help give you some experience and get your feet wet a little bit to see how you can do in a supportive, lower risk environment than just throwing somebody in when they, because as every time you get promoted, for example, there's always a certain part of you that doesn't know how to do something. So here is a great way to do that. So part of it is, so you're building your bench strength. So that's a win, but it's also a win for them because they are getting out of their comfort zone. They're getting to try new things. They're building their strengths, or they're getting to have more visibility, whatever it might be that's really important to them and to you. So it's not just the task itself of delegation, but it is a way to grow your team. Because let's face it, you may win the lottery tomorrow, right? So do you have a plan B in place? So think about that now. So it's a win-win in many different ways.
I love this concept of it is sort of writing yourself out of a job. And it completely applies at work and at home. As you were talking about how it applies at work, I was thinking, and that's exactly what you said you were doing with your kids at home. You don't always have a choice, but you can have some choice. And that whole concept of growth, you're trying to grow your children into independent people who are
Mhm.
capable once they are not in your home anymore. And you're trying to grow people in your organization to take on more responsibility, to be ready for a next level of a next level position in the organization. So it really it ties a lot into some things we talk about at ThirdPath, how there are work-life integration skills that apply both at work and at home. And I really appreciate how in your story you kind of helped tie that all together. And I would imagine as you're getting good at it in one area of your life, you're also able to see that you can get, you can kind of level up for yourself in those skills in the other area in your life.
Yeah, that's right. Because it's growth for you as whether it's a peer, a partner, a leader, whatever it might be, is to helping develop others. That's a key skill to have or to learn. So that gives you an opportunity to do that as well. So absolutely, it's a win on many fronts there. And it builds confidence, right? We want people to feel confident in the work they do and get a step ahead. But so one of the other things that I see though at work too is this concept of sometimes people delegate and they sort of, the dump truck comes in, they just drop it off and they go, okay, and this is when I need it, right? And if you think of like, the process itself may be obvious to you because you've been doing it, or things make sense because you know the context and the bigger picture. But do the people you're delegating to have all that information or everything they need to be successful? And sometimes they do, but sometimes you really need to think about, I like to use a metaphor of like planting a seed at home, right? You can plant it, you can water it, and then you can hope that in the spring it's going to grow into this like lovely plant that you admire. But at the same time, the reality is that you have to go out there once in a while and make sure it has optimal conditions. Is the lighting okay? Does it need fertilizer, right? Do you need to weed around it? Those kinds of things. So it's those regular, just sort of touch bases check-ins, right? To make sure that you're creating the greatest possibility of success. So same thing when you're delegating is immediately after you delegate something, especially if it's a larger or new project or something complicated, is to schedule a check-in immediately after people have a chance to internalize and process. Do they have questions? Also investing time, talking about what your expectations are and how your availability is going to look and how they can get with you so that there's an open door policy. They know that you're there and available, but you're also, to the extent that you're comfortable, giving them some free rein to kind of take things and run with it. But then you're scheduling more milestone check-ins. And those are critical because if you wait to the end and it's not what you expect, or it's not at the caliber, or it doesn't look the way you would hope for, it's kind of too late, right? And it doesn't feel good to either person. So instead, if you are scheduling those milestones ahead of time, creating a space where it's a learning opportunity and questions can be asked, or rejiggering those expectations. And also the person may have some thoughts on, hey, maybe we need to course correct. And this is what I'm thinking. And it gives you enough time to do that.
There's so much about relationship building that you're talking about, and relationships really are at the core of everything we're doing in our work life and our personal life, and
Right.
really having that opportunity to make it a back and forth, a give and take. I think we all have an opportunity to learn when that happens. You have an opportunity, whether it's your kids saying to you, hey, I think that the sink would be better cleaned this way in the bathroom, or your employee at work saying, I understand you've always scheduled meetings this way before. It's my turn to schedule the meetings and I'm going to do it this way instead. If we really think of ourselves as always both a student and a teacher, there's so much we can gain from leveraging delegation. So I'm going to switch gears for us, and I want
Okay.
to talk about you've been a facilitator for our overwhelm mitigation groups, and you are familiar with various materials that ThirdPath has around the topic of delegation. And as you've been able to share that information, I'm guessing that there are some themes that have kind of resonated throughout various groups that you've worked with. So any themes that you want to bring up around delegation, team at home, team at work?
Yeah, yeah, it's been enlightening for me to be able to have the opportunity to teach the overwhelm mitigation groups. And this topic especially comes up and people are like, oh yeah, we know how to delegate. But then when we start getting into discussion, like the free form, it's great to hear from each other because we do hear some recurring themes that we all kind of have happened at some point or another, or we have to address, right? So one of them that I hear a lot of times is that delegation often happens when somebody, say a leader or a peer or a team member, is already at the point of like pulling their hair out. They're overwhelmed, right? They haven't waved the white flag to go, help me, right? Until it's like at the breaking point, maybe, or like it's really like late in the game and there's like they're juggling a lot of balls, right? Trying to make everything happen. So what does that do to the process, right? It's like you have a shortened, abbreviated time frame to really explain things. You may not be as available as you hope. You're already a little pulled in a lot of different directions. So your focus may not be there to completely share everything that you're looking for. And at the end of the day, sometimes you just need to do that, right? Like it's recognized and you need to hand something off to somebody to make it reasonable, or somebody else has bandwidth. But ideally, think about when your quieter cycles are at work. It could be like a certain time during the day or week. It could be like maybe you're on a quarterly cycle, or like right now, the beginning of the year is a great time to think about it and just take a moment and go, okay, what's working well? Let's look at everybody's workload now. And so it's the anticipation ahead of time so that the delegation can happen in a thoughtful way. We're not sort of like I call it deflection, like almost like Wonder Woman, like click, click, everything bounces off and like, you're it, tag, not me, right? But at the end of the day, it's like, right, it's the collaboration that we were just talking about. So to enable that to happen, can you create the conditions for it to happen in a way that you can be supportive and be available? So again, not always possible, but when you have a little bit of downtime, or if you already anticipating something on the horizon, is somebody going to be out for a leave? Maybe summertime, a lot of people take vacations, whatever it might be, or there's some big projects coming. To the extent that you can think and get ahead of it, that's the case for everybody. So that's one that I have seen a few times. But another one I was thinking about was, I know I've been on the other end of this one, so I can really relate when we talked about this, is that sometimes when we delegate, there's an assumption that everybody's sort of thinking in the same way and knows what the outcome should look like. And there's very little handoff time. But really, when you think about like a project life cycle or handing off a task, there needs to be an investment of time up front and make sure there is clarity, right? When I say I need this, give a little more explanation and then ask questions to make sure that they understand. The last thing you want to do is have somebody waste their time and go down a path it's not what you were expecting, or for you to be disappointed or frustrated, right? So invest the time up front, allow them to really go deep a little bit. Give them time to ask questions, but also give some context and be transparent when you can. So it's not just this one finite task, it's the bigger picture so they know how they fit into the puzzle of what's being delegated to them. And then in that case, there's probably more likelihood that you're going to get what you're hoping for and what you're expecting in the timeline that you need it. As opposed to rushing it and then having to redo things, fix things, or recalibrate later.
I love it. I could go back and reiterate like 15 different things that you said. I'm going to let it stand where it is because you articulated so many great lessons so well. Any last thoughts that you'd want to share around this really important and enriching topic?
So delegation is really important. I think it's important for ourselves, or if we oversee a team or have teammates, right, to look out for each other, and to lean in. But you mentioned it earlier. It's that anticipation, intentionality of thoughtful of how you do the process is one of them, but also like the reframing of like what delegation really means. So it's not just getting something off your plate. How is this a win-win? How is this an opportunity for everybody involved? Because again, you put it so beautifully, Melissa. You said like it's okay to delegate yourself out of a job or out of a task, right? Sometimes we hold on to it because for some reason I love the limelight, or I really enjoy this work, right? Well, guess what? They might enjoy it too. And sometimes we need to spread the wealth and share those kinds of things, right? Don't just hand off the menial things that people might enjoy. Really think about what you're handing off and why. And you're going to get a lot of buy-in. You're going to get a lot of support and be much more collaborative, and maybe even an iterative process where you both can get a lot out of it.
Beautiful. So well said. Judy, I really appreciate the time you've taken with us today. And Judy, again, is such a great example of the many, many incredible people who are part of the Third Path community. Thanks so much, Judy.
Thank you, Melissa.
Hi again. We've been talking to Morra Aarons Mele and Judy Hughes about building a team at home and team at work. So, Melissa, what were some of the things that you liked best about my conversation with Morra?
Well, I mean, the big standout for me is the forced family fun, which I think because I have small children, it's very funny to me to just think about needing to bring everybody together. And I do see the use of it, but from a more practical standpoint, it's being intentional about coming together. And I think when you come together in those informal ways, that really does actually solidify who your team is, what your team at home is. So that forced family fun just gave me a big smile, but I think there is a really important piece behind it. The other thing, though, that was on the more serious side was what happens when you have a trigger like anxiety that should, when it comes up, should really give you pause to stop, to take a break from the way life is going and to assess what's going on. Why isn't working? Why is it not working right now? And what do we need to change? What shifts could we make so that things are better?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I really thought it was interesting. She called it her spidey sense. And I can't tell you how many people who kind of just ignore the messages their body are telling them. And instead, if we slow down and pay attention to the messages our body are telling us, everything works better, including things like, I'm exhausted. I actually need to step away from what I'm doing right now and pay attention to the fact that I'm tired and I need to take a walk, or I need to get to bed early, or I need to whatever. So our bodies give us good information. Um, I'm going to tell you a couple of things that I really thought was terrific from this conversation. Um, you talked about you and I have been talking about how this is all really about knowing what your capacity is, you know? And again, back to that spidey sense, and paying attention to what the messages our body are telling us, and that, you know, you're going to have times when work and life conflict, but the more you have a really strong team at home and a strong team at work, it also gives you more opportunities to manage those times when there's going to be times when you're over capacity, and you just have many more options for how to manage your capacity better. Well, I want to tell you some of the things that I really enjoyed from the conversation with Judy. We always love hearing from Judy. She's just so wise, and it's so great to have her be someone who runs our OMG programs, because she just brings all that wisdom to those people who are trying to learn for the first time. It feels impossible to live an integrated life. And in comes Judy with, lots of wisdom and experience to help people around this. Um, well, some of the things that I really liked from Judy was, first off, again, this theme about intentionality. And obviously it plays on both sides, right? But when she was talking about it on the home front, she said, you're not alone, you know, or she said, um, you're not a mind reader, right? Um, and she reminded us that you're never too late to make a change. And I know that you're going to talk about how these are things that we can do both at work and home. It's just really underscoring what we're learning to create a team at home is going to help us in creating a team at work, and what we're leading at team work is going to help us at team at home. Um, then she gave a ton of great advice around how to delegate well, right? And my favorite one was no dump truck delegation. Like, I love that phrase because I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say the leader just came in and said, here's this thing, here's a ridiculous deadline, get it done. And that's the opposite of what you need to make delegation work well. Of course, you can do that, but is it going to really be as successful if you don't? If you could set it up in a different way, the way Judy was talking about, you're going to have delegation go so much better. What were some of the other things that you really felt like you wanted to underscore from Judy's conversation?
Well, there were a couple of things, building on what you were talking about, the no dump truck delegation. There's that piece about being collaborative. And her example she used was from the way she helped delegate to her children. But I also think there's something very relevant there at home. At work, this is such a good example of those integration, the work-life integration skills, what you do at work and what you do at home, and building your skills in one area helps you leverage them in another. And I was thinking about, as a parent, while I would love to have it always be collaborative, it's not always collaborative. Like, sorry, a bed needs to be made. This is one of your jobs. But that idea that, like, here's a menu of 10, you need to pick 2 off of the menu of 10. And I think that same thing applies at work. As a supervisor, you don't always, and as an employee, you don't always have the luxury to say no, thank you, but to at least be invited to collaborate and to have an open discourse about, wow, I'm really surprised that you asked me to do that. And here are the 5 reasons why that doesn't fit for me. And being a kind of supervisor who says, even that kind of conversation is an opportunity for professional growth. Open conversation and trusting relationships are important to being a strong supervisor and to having a really high functioning team and high functioning workplace.
What you're getting at is this idea of intentionality, but also thoughtful conversations. Because what can happen if it's going well is, what Judy talked about is you need to explain why you're giving something to somebody, and that maybe helps them take on a task that's less exciting, but now they understand the why behind it. But if you've created a kind of a safe place for people to talk about things in a thoughtful way, it could be that that employee says, I'll happily do this. I'm wondering if we did it this way, it would take me less time and it still might accomplish the same things. So you're not saying, here's the dump truck solution. You're saying, here's this task. I think it's you that's got to get it done. And there's some creativity that can happen because you create good conversations about this, both at work and at home. So it's really a lot of opportunity here.
There is, and I think this really ties in nicely to something that we try to teach at ThirdPath all the time, and that's experimentation. And part of experimentation is actually checking in. How are we doing? So it's not just that initial conversation to say this is what's going to happen, but let's set a check-in point to figure out how are we doing, and to know that, hey, this is a big thing I'm delegating to you. And let's see what happens. Let's try it for 2 months and see how it's going. And I think that makes it feel less burdensome and less. There's, I believe, the likelihood for less resentment on both sides to be able to say, I hear that doesn't feel exactly like what you'd like to do. However, we're going to keep checking in. We're going to see how it's going, and it's an experiment.
Yeah.
Let's pilot. Let's see what happens.
Because both of us, what we're saying is the goal is building the team and building the team at work and at home. So really it's that's the intention. You're trying to build a strong team. And if you're dump trucking or you're not doing delegation well, you're not really going to end up building a great team. You mentioned one last thing I want you to talk about, this idea of how this all fits into a triple win. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I would love to talk about that. I really learned that terminology triple win from you in all of my interactions at ThirdPath. And so I think about triple win a lot. And to me, in terms of delegation, the triple win really looks like there is personal relief. If I've taken on something all on my own and some of it needs to go because I'm past capacity, when I delegate, I start to feel that relief that you are helping the other person with their skill building. I think of it more at home than I do at work, just because it's more relevant for me right now. And I use that the laundry analogy that my kids need to learn how to do laundry. I could keep doing it for them until they move out of my house, but at some point they need to learn how to do laundry. It's mutually beneficial to us for them to learn how to do their laundry. And then the third piece of the triple win is succession planning. Eventually, you are trying to work yourself out of some of those jobs. You are trying to build a stronger family or a stronger organization. And by allowing for delegation, you really are promoting this succession planning.
Fabulous. Love it. Love how smart you are. Love that you keep on using ThirdPath tools to be so smart. And if you're looking for some more information, we've got a great blog post where we talk about some of this. Actually, I confess a little bit about what, managing chaos in my life in this month's blog post. But also, the ThirdPath Leader is a great place for you to find 6 exercises. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it at BookBaby. It's our book called The ThirdPath Leader. It's got 6 exercises that will help you build a team at home and a team at work. Got case studies of people who've put this into practice. It's a really great resource for learning more about this. So, in the meantime, thanks for listening in today and keep taking your third path.